Welcome to my video woodworking series. These are the videos that I put together that give you all of the details necessary not just to follow me in what I'm doing on this build, but to actually build the thing yourself. I'm particularly happy to put this video together because it's the first one that I'm doing for beginners. No previous woodshop experience is necessary to do this build. This is a request that I've gotten several times in the comments from my previous builds, so hopefully there's a lot of you out there that are interested in content like this. Now I will also explain why it's taken me so long to actually put one of these together. And the reason for that is I was a little bit nervous in putting out something that just showed you the steps of doing a particular build without actually explaining to you in a little more detail how to do it safely. So along with this video, I'm going to be putting out a series of videos that talk about basic safety inside of the shop and how to use the various tools in their most basic manner. When you're done watching this video, hopefully you'll go take a look at those videos before you actually try and embark on making a build like this by yourself. Now, what are we building? This is a votive candle holder, and it's my own design. And I made this design for two very distinct purposes. The first is that it makes a great gift, something that someone can build in maybe an hour and a half, and then be able to give it to someone special in their lives. But two, it's also designed specifically to use all of the various tools inside of the wood shop and give you an introduction to their use. So I often use this little build when youth groups come to visit my shop and they have about an hour or so that they can make something simple and have a nice gift. So I hope you're interested in following along with me, not only creating something nice for yourself or for someone else, but also in learning a little bit more about how you do a build inside of the wood shop. Let's get started. As I do in every one of these video woodworking series videos, we need to start by talking about the materials. And the choice here is very wide for you and open to whatever it is you want to do to make it look the way you like, and also to pick which tools you want to work with in the shop. So I have done this example one in a couple of contrasting colors. The outside wood here is maple and the inside is walnut. You can do it in the exact same wood throughout the entire piece if that's what you'd like to do. You could make a darker color on the outside and a lighter one on the inside. You can even, if you'd like to, not use hardwood at all. You can go to the box store, Home Depot, Lowe's, those sort of things, and pick up some pine boards. If this is something you just want to learn with and you're not too concerned about using the end result of it, that's a fine and cheap way to go as well. The big question that begins this build, though, is whether you're going to start with pre-milled lumber or not. Now, pre-milled lumber looks like this. This is a 1x3 board, which means it's actually 3/4 of an inch thick, and it's 2.5 inches wide. If you start with this, that's a perfectly valid choice. You just get to skip the first two parts in this video. If you want to work with the less expensive option, but a little bit more work in the wood shop, then you go with rough cut lumber. And this is a piece of rough cut maple. You can see how jagged it is on all of the edges. We're going to have to mill that up first. It's up to you what you'd like to do. If you have the pre-cut lumber, you can skip ahead a couple steps. Otherwise, we'll start by milling down this lumber on this jointer. I am not going to explain how to use these tools in any sort of detail in this video. As I mentioned in the introduction, I've created a whole series of videos that go over how these tools work. I highly encourage you to take a look at those videos or to get an introduction to these tools by someone who knows them well. I have linked to them in the video description and at the end of the video. This first step is only needed if you're working with rough cut wood. First, joint one of the faces until it's nice and smooth. Then use that jointed face against the fence to get a nice 90-degree angle on one of the edges. Do this for the wood of both parts A and part B. Take the pieces that you jointed in step 1 and run them through a thickness planer until you reach a thickness of 3/4 of an inch. If you're going to err on the side of too thick or too thin, It's okay to make them slightly too thin. Too thick and they won't fit in the slot we cut later. Take the boards that you just thickness down for both parts A and B over to the table saw. Set the saw to 2 1/2 inches and rip the pieces through. With this step complete, we'll have caught up to our friends who bought the pre-dimensioned wood, and everyone should follow all remaining steps. Begin your dimension cuts by trimming one end off of each board to make sure that they're square. Mark 5 1/2 inches over for the two parts A and 7 1/2 inches over for part B, and then make your cut. Replace your saw blade with a 3/4 inch dado stack. If you're not quite sure how to do this, go check out my video on the basic use of the table saw. Set your table saw fence 1/2 of an inch from the inside of the blade. Use a scrap piece of wood to do a sample cut and test it for fit against part B. If everything checks out, go ahead and cut 2 dados, one in each of part A, and be sure to use the safety paddle when doing this cut. Now you'll notice that the corners are rounded over on these particular vertical pieces. And there's a couple of ways to do that. So you have a couple of choices early on. The first is, how are you going to mark those roundovers? I have a little guide for that. So again, this is something that I make, where I can simply put it on right there and go ahead and draw that out. Now, if you don't have one of these in your shop, that's not a big deal. Go get a penny, stick it on there, and just trace the penny's outline. The second choice we have to make is how we're going to cut that. There's a few different ways to do that. One option is to go on the bandsaw. Another option is to use the router table. I'll show you both, and we'll finish it off with sanding on a belt sander, which is actually, with this amount of material, you could probably just do it with the belt sander, but we're trying to learn the tools. So let's go do that. I'll first show you how it's done using a routing table. You should only use this method if you do have a cornering template. Definitely do not try and do this by eye. It's not a lot of material, just make sure that you're cutting against the spinning blade. The bandsaw method is definitely the easier of the two. If you're at all uncomfortable using the router table, just do this for both sides. Here are the results of rounding off the corners. This one on the left was done with the router table, and this one on the right was done with the bandsaw. Both are pretty good, but neither one is perfect, and they'll both need sanding. For the top piece, we need to mark out where our holes are going to go that the votive candles will sit inside of. So we need to mark halfway. The best way to do that is to go ahead and measure and mark on both ends halfway on the board. Then you can use a straight edge and draw the center line. You then come in and mark the center points. 2 inches in from the sides, and the middle should be 3 3/4, and then another 2 inches in from the sides. We'll use a center punch to guide our hole, so where they cross, we just pop a hole like that. Let me show you another way of doing that. Let's say you don't have a center punch, but you do have a set for nails, a nail set, or even a nail itself. You can find where that is and tap it. It'll give you the same result as the center punch. chuck in a 1.5-inch Forstner bit, and then we want it to stay up a 1/2 inch off of our table. So we'll set our depth stop to right there. It's only going to take out 1/4 inch of material and just basically give a little bit of a set for those candles. Now this piece of wood is big enough that I can hold it with my hand while I drill, or you could use a clamp for a little bit of added safety. I'll do one of each. The important part is just to take your time. You don't have to hurry this. Although for you, dear viewer, I will hurry it up by speeding this up just a little bit. At the center of a Forstner bit, there is a small guide that sticks a little bit further than the hole that's cut out. You see me dipping my head down here so that I can make sure that that guide is fitting into the center punched holes that we did in the previous step. The process is simply repeated for each of the 3 holes, and you have your candle holders. Set your router table up with a 1/4 inch round over bit. Use a safety paddle to help you guide these pieces of wood through when working with this bit. You want to get all 4 sides of the top only on part B. For both of the vertical stands, part A, you want to round over the outside edges and don't do the bottom edge. For part B, the candle should be facing down, and for part A, the dado cut should be facing up. So all of the pieces are now cut exactly as they're going to be assembled together. But we do need to sand it down a little bit first. I use this orbital sander right here, and I make sure I'm wearing a mask when I'm doing it. You don't want that dust in your lungs. It is also the one exception where I do sometimes wear a glove while I'm using this power tool. I'll be sanding with my right hand, and I don't want to get a paper cut off of that edge if it happens to get a little too close, since these are such small pieces. Won't hurt me that bad, but this is a good protection. I won't make you watch all of the sanding either. We'll get a little start on it, and then I'll cut the video out, and I'll let you do your own sanding. For the glue up, we just need to mark 1 inch in on each side. I have lead to do that. 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and 1 inch. The pieces will assemble together right on those marks. We'll put glue in both grooves. I'll use a brush to make it nice and uniform inside of there, and then we'll clamp it together. The glue will get in the way of the finish, so we do need, if you get any extra on the finished surface, be sure and wipe that off, probably with a damp cloth. I'll come back and do that once I've got this all clamped together. Try and make your clamps line up with the middle of this board so that it's not tilting the feet in any direction. And nice and tight. Now we'll have to let that sit for a couple of hours, and then we'll put on the finish. So we've given the glue enough time to set up, a couple hours or so, and it's perfectly strong now, and it's really all done except for the fact that we need to put a finish on it. And leaving it unfinished is really a bad idea. It will absorb the oils from your skin if you touch it, and it's really not protected from any of the elements, even the elements inside your home. So the first question that you have to answer is whether you want to alter the color of it. And that would normally be done either through a stain or some paint. Either one's a perfectly fine option if that's what you're going for. You just apply it according to the recommendations on the can, and then you'll have to give it enough time before you put your clear coat finish. Now, I don't like stain in general. I do like the natural look of the wood, so I'm just going to go with a clear coat. And I have a couple of options there as well, especially for a piece this size. I think the two best options are either to go with an oil, like these two products here, or to go with a polyurethane that's water-based. The oils provide great protection, and they have low VOCs, which is an advantage that I think a lot of people like. However, they do tend to put a little bit of yellow into the wood when you're putting on it, especially the maple. So sometimes, if you don't want that look, you need a different alternative. And that is what I'm going to go for in this particular case. I'm going to use the polyurethane. This is a water-based interior polyurethane, and you apply it with a brush, or you actually can wipe it on as well. It does a very thin coat, and so I'm probably going to have to do at least 2 coats, maybe 3. And when I do them, I put 1 coat on, and then I let that sit. It actually sets up very quickly, maybe an hour. And I take a very light sand, 500 grit, before I put on the next coat. Do that 2 or 3 times, and I think it should be perfectly usable or make an appropriate gift for someone. Let's do that. That's the entire process from start to finish. I hope that I've given you enough detail in this video that you can create a votive candle holder just like this one. Whether it's a gift for you or for a friend, the important part is you've learned a little bit more about woodworking, and potentially you've taken a first step into a brand new hobby that can last you a lifetime. If you've enjoyed the content of this video, I'd encourage you to subscribe to the channel. And please, if you have suggestions, leave them in the comments below. It was suggestions that led to this video. I intend to make many more of these video woodworking plans, and I'll span the spectrum of skills from beginner to expert. In the meantime, I'm encouraged by the fact that you want to learn a little bit more about woodworking, and I look forward to seeing the things that you can create. Hopefully, I'll see you again on a future video.